Welcome to the Recruiter Abroad Startup Podcast. My name's Dulta Doherty, and in this podcast series, I will be interviewing investors, advisors, and entrepreneurs from the agency recruitment world and how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment business. This week, I'm joined by Steve Ward. He's been in the industry for over 20 years. He's set up and scaled and ran multiple businesses for himself and for other people. He's worked in large businesses, medium businesses, small businesses, found that he had a talent for troubleshooting and really getting things off the ground and fixing it. When the social media thing came around, probably after the recession, he really jumped into that, got to know it, and became really the preeminent person in our industry in the UK on being an expert in that space. I meant this to only go on for about half an hour, but it went on for an hour because I could barely scratch the surface with the amount of knowledge this man has. And I could have spoke to him for another day, and I'd probably end up going out to buy a load of technology that I'd then have to learn how to implement. He is very smart, knows his stuff. I think if anybody's thinking of setting up their own business and they want a social strategy and they want to know how to do it and maybe create a one-to-many solution where, you know, you're putting out a message and lots of people see it and then they come to you as opposed to you having to hit the phones. His claim to fame is he didn't do one sales call in 10 years and he is running a really successful business based on that. I think you'll get a lot from this. And if you do, let me know, because every time you tell me or rate it on iTunes, it really makes our day. The other thing I wanted to tell you guys is I'm moving the other podcast I've done, Recruiter Abroad, onto this channel. You've probably seen that there's been quite a few new episodes on this. They're all the backlog of episodes that I have interviewed amazing agency recruiters who are around the world on their story, and you know the themes are quite similar: setting up a desk, setting up a business, what it's like to be an expat, all that jazz. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it. Really enjoying getting to speak to all these amazing people in our industry. You know, our industry gets a tough time of it, but I think, as you'll see from this podcast, there's lots of great characters, lots of people you'd see and you go, you know what, I'd love to go for a beer with them, and lots of smart people. You know, I don't think we get the credit we deserve. Like, there's lots of great business people in our industry, and yeah, hopefully this is bringing that to light. Anyway, over to Steve. Let me know if you guys enjoy it. He is phenomenal. Take care. Bye. Steve Ward, how are you today?
Very well, thank you. Good to talk to you, Jolton.
Yeah, you too. Thanks for coming on and sharing a little bit of your wisdom with us.
My pleasure. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. So we normally start the show by you giving us just a little bit of an insight into your own background. I appreciate it's tough to go through 20 plus years in short succession, but maybe you could maybe give us some of the highlights, and then I'll jump in and maybe ask a couple of questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, as you've alluded, it has been over 20 years. In fact, even it almost seems to be approaching 30 years when I first sat in a recruitment office making 300 sales calls a day, back as it was back in those days. But yeah, I spent a little time in a couple of agencies early doors. I was thrust into a leadership role when I was only 24 years old. That was quite an experience. And kind of I'm very sort of relevant to this podcast. Became a bit of a specialist at opening recruitment officers. That became my thing, basically. In fact, I had a job for 18 months that was to spend 90 days in a new recruitment office every quarter.
And tell us what type of things were important back then? Because is this the 90s still?
Yeah, we're still talking late 90s, just going into 2000, and yeah, so it was. I guess it's the same, but the dynamic of how you did it was different. The thing that was always the same is how do you make an impact really quickly? How do you get more eyes as possible on your subject, on your product, on your service really quickly, and to make an instant impact? So a great example is when I first sat in my very first office as a manager for the first time, opening a new office in Crawley in West Sussex near Gatwick Airport. And
I'm just down the road from there.
Oh, are you really? Oh,
yeah.
And I was given an office from day one, and all it had inside it was a telephone, 2 or 3 telephones wired to the walls. And I was, where's my desk? Where's my chair? And he's like, we have to earn the desk and the chair, make some money. And I remember in those days, I mean, that was literally a case of walking the industrial estate, the business park by Gatwick Airport, the Manor Royal estate, and knocking on doors and walking in warehouse doors and finding any kind of business that I could. And I remember that was a Monday, and by Friday we got our first £10, and then. But it was all about how can you put as many eyes on who you are and let many people know who you are and what you do as quick as you possibly can in the most effective way. And I left there 3.5 years later with 350 temps going out to work every day into Gatwick Airport. That was a bonkers world, but it's actually something that I've never ever been scared of. The figure zero and starting from the figure zero. So it was so it became I guess my specialist thing from a point of view of doing it for a couple of other recruitment agencies thereafter, then starting a recruitment agency of my own in 2001, but doing it pretty badly. Because that lasted about 18 months, 2 years.
What key mistakes would you say you made back then?
Oh, do you know what? What you do very, very, if you're not very careful, going back to the thing I said at the start about making an impact really quickly, and when you make an impact really quickly, if you're good at it, you get some good business early, and you make some billings really quickly, and you all of a sudden rise on a bit of a crest of a wave. And I remember with my first recruitment business, we absolutely did that within, I remember the 3rd month of operation, we billed £35,000. It was just me and one other person. And that £35,000, it sits in your account when you're self-funded, is glorious. You know, that it's
your runway.
Yeah, it's net profit. It's there sat right in front of you. And I guess I suppose then maybe I reinvested it a little bit quickly, but what I didn't do when it's still a young kind of startup then was build a combination of a pipeline and a basis, a grounding, a basis, and so it's great. I think we did the 2nd month we did 14,000.
And when you say a pipeline, what do you mean exactly?
We built business for now. So what we've done is because it's a common startup mistake, it's a common office opening mistake, is you aim to get your business in the bank, you get money in the bank now because you want to pay your way, you want to get profitability fast. But what you don't do, the mistakes I made was we didn't think about what our future business was, who are our clients in 6 months' time, where are we going to draw talent from in 6 months' time. So what you'd start to do is you get excited by the early successful months, but then realize that actually isn't the recipes for success. The recipes for success is continued, consistent. So rather than throwing in 35 grand in the 3rd month, you're better off making sure you put 10 to 15 in for 6 consecutive months, rather than going for 14 second month, 35 3rd month, and then having this kind of, and it was going okay actually for 4, 5, 6 months, but I remember 7 and 8, 9 being absolutely appalling, and and all of a sudden everything you just done and then you've reinvested into the business, all of a sudden the pipeline of work wasn't there, so you were relying on 4 or 5 kind of key clients.
What year was this in?
This was back in 2001, 2002.
Okay.
Around that kind of time, and it was
good times back then.
What's that?
Good commercial times back then, right?
It really was. The only thing that was 9/11 had happened, so I actually had come out of working in the city when 9/11 kind of crashed the banking market. So, but it actually, as it happens, it was still good times for recruitment.
Yeah.
I just went back down to Sussex and and decided to run a business locally, and it was great. It really was good times. But it was. You need more than 4 or 5 clients to build a recruitment business, unless those clients are absolutely phenomenal.
Was it just you or you and a business partner, or did you?
Me and a colleague. I started. I'd done a project with another recruitment company in Horsham. That I left to start this recruitment business, and took somebody with me who wanted to continue working with me, and we kicked it off, and it was fun. And it was actually called Recruitment Cafe. The idea was we were going to make it into the first recruitment internet cafe. So you also have these kind of dreams, but actually, there's a lot of money you need to make things like that a reality, unless you go and get lots of investment. And I didn't want to go the investment route. I wanted to make our own money. And, but the ideas were always there. I mean, I've never been short of ideas, but the idea was always there. Unfortunately, the growth never supported it, because I made bags of mistakes. I made all sorts of mistakes, and but I think the killer one was never having sufficient clients, particularly in a geographically local area that we're operating in as well. So we always had a limited amount of kind of client reach in any respect, because we were working quite locally in West Sussex. But yeah, hey boy, I mean, it was we relied too much on 4 or 5 clients who served us well in the early days.
And from there, then, did you set up another business, or did you go back and work for somebody?
No, I went I spent some time working for what used to be Search Appointments, or search. I think it was called Search Appointments. I think that's what it used to be called. Select Appointments. That's one. So I worked for Select for a while as the London head of permanent recruitment in London. Brilliant fun, great. Ironically, although it was a very established business, I still did turn up for an office that were billing 0. 5 recruiters that were billing 0 for 3 consecutive months. And so I had to do a bit of a turnaround job there.
So you go in there day one. What's the first thing that you do whenever you've obviously analysed the numbers?
Yeah.
How do you go and smash heads together to get that up?
Do you know what the funniest thing was then? And I think this is I think one of the things that startup recruiters are quite good at now, but institutionalized recruiters are less good at. So what I mean by institutionalized recruiters, I mean people who have worked in an established organization that is doing lots of things over and over again to make its billing success. This was a great example. I walked into an environment with actually 5 really decent recruiters. I mean, not superstars, maybe a couple of underperformers, but these are good guys. And walked in, and they were billing nothing. And so I kind of said, well, actually, I didn't look at what I was going to do. What I looked at is what they've been doing already. And I looked at what their kind of typical way of operation was. And the only way that their previous leader had told them to try and get out of this hole was to keep selling. And so they'd been like, well, they just told us to keep getting on the phone and find more business. And I kind of looked and thought, well, you've been doing that. I can see that, because you've got 60 something jobs between. So I told them not to sell for 2 months. I'm not sure you can do that from an absolute standing start point from a recruitment agency, but you can. Sure. If a bunch of recruiters have been selling for so much over the last 2 months, they had 60 open jobs, and they just weren't doing anything with them. So I told them to stop selling for 2 months and start working on candidate generation. And in itself is a story in itself, really, because we do that thing of from day one thinking, where's my first client? Not often do we start off thinking, where's my talent pool, from day one.
Yeah.
It's a really interesting kind of dynamic I've seen different people kind of walk through in regard to. I certainly used to start recruitment businesses in the 90s thinking, where's my first client? Where's my next client? And then I'll find some people, because that's how we used to work it in those days, wasn't it? We would win a client, then advertise, and you're allowed that time lapse.
Even 2 or 3 clients just to get going.
Yeah.
To have a focus point.
That's right.
I think that's important.
Yeah, you had to sell a job in those days. So, you had to have proof of a job, and then you had to put it in a newspaper or on a sandwich board, or, a board or something like that. And then you would draw people, because that's how it was. The internet wasn't around. There was no research journey. There's no signposts. So you had to job first, tell everybody you've got a job, draw candidate flow in, and then start to use the candidate flow to draw more jobs and more jobs. And so it's really strange. Whereas in this scenario, going into select appointments, which was, it was an established office really, but it was just billing zero, was the fact that you have the business, the clients are already there. You just don't have a talent pool because nobody's been interviewing anybody, or nobody's been interviewing anybody any good. And so one of the things I found as a bit of a dynamic shift over the years, and particularly in that period, is that thing. And I guess it's two ways of looking at it. But I started to work on a journey that says, don't bother going to try and get clients until you've got some candidates to fulfill the client needs, because all of a sudden we're in a highly competitive London commercial recruitment market, where actually speed of candidate delivery became of the essence, and was genuinely a kind of like a USP. So speed of delivery was more important than client winning. Effectively, we had the clients. Winning business all of a sudden became a very easy thing to do. I mean, this is around 2005, 2004. Winning business was fine. That was the easy part. The harder part became, can we be first to market with candidates? And
feels a bit like that right now, doesn't it?
Well, I think that was the turn. I think it was around then it became the turn where I think job roles evolved, the availability of work evolved. I don't know what I mean by that is because, you started to get in the world where the internet was more developed. 2005, we weren't quite, 2005, we weren't quite in the LinkedIn kind of realm yet. But particularly in a market like London, the candidate had choice. So it wasn't a client market. It started to become that candidate-driven market, and I think what therefore we needed to do was to prove to the marketplace that we had the best candidates, not that we could fill jobs. And there's a real massive dynamic shift in that. That I think is a cornerstone of how recruitment absolutely is now. First access to talent is your genuine USP.
What did you do during the recession?
Well, that was ironically, that's when I started Cloud9. When I decided I was sick, Selector turned into Randstad. I wasn't particularly, I didn't love the Randstad culture, style, etc. It didn't suit me. They're a phenomenal organisation. It just didn't suit me very well. Fair enough. And I decided I didn't want to keep travelling up to London and Surrey and various places. I was working for them. I decided that I wanted to see my new, my wife at the time was pregnant with our first child, and I thought, I don't want to, I want to see the child when it's in its formative years. So I decided we converted our garage into an extra bedroom and office, and I started Cloud9 with nothing and with no particular direction at that particular time, other than to go, do you know what, I want to see my kid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to recruit. I'm going to place odd roles in odd locations around Sussex, whatever anybody needed. And there was no business plan at the time, and it wasn't really designed to be. Actually, all I wanted to do was be a home recruiter for the first few months or a year or so, and just see my baby. And that's what I did. And I was playing. So I was doing little bits of work. So when you're sitting in your own on your own steam at home, all you really need to do is place 1 or 2 people a month, or 3 people every 2 months, or something like that. And that was all that Cloud9 was intended to be when I started it in the first place. A little bit of local business, etc., etc. And then once that started to, but then I started to win some business I wasn't expecting, or hadn't really the sort of volume I wasn't quite expecting. With a digital an email marketing company in Brighton called Pure 360, and I did a big recruitment project for them, which was great. We're still in recession here. We're still sort of talking 2007 going into 2008, so really prime recession. But that's fine. When you're a small independent recruiter, the recession means nothing. In fact, actually, I would say in any recession that I've encountered, and obviously there's been a few of those in my 25 years or so working, but the recession, if you're agile enough, recessions don't affect you. If you're a big cumbersome organization, of course it's going to impact on your overall trends. I just stayed agile. I was looking for companies that were recruiting. That's all that mattered. I wasn't looking for companies that were telling me they weren't recruiting. I mean, we don't look for companies that are recruiting, do we?
Sure, yeah.
We look for companies who are.
And let me jump into the social stuff. So
yeah.
When did that light bulb go off in your head? Like, is this when you're at home and you probably have a little bit more time to do a bit of research?
Yeah.
Like, what was that? How did that come about?
So working. So it stems from that client in Brighton. One day, a CV came to me that wasn't relevant for those jobs, but it was a CV that said social media account manager. And we're talking. This is now into sort of 2008, and
Web 2.0, right?
Yeah, we're in that zone now. We're there.
Whatever that meant.
Whatever. Yeah, I think I sidestepped that, whatever that was. but then this CV came along that said social media account manager. I had no idea what one of those was. So I Googled it. And I looked for jobs, and I guess this is that. Go back to that thing that says if you find a CV that's really interesting and you have no particular direction, as I had no direction at the time, I just Googled social media account manager jobs, and I found a company who were hiring one of these rare beasts, and it was a guy called Christian Gladwell, and a company called Interaction London, which was a social media agency in London. I didn't know what one of those were either, so I dropped this guy a line. And he said, the CV looks amazing. I'd like to talk to this person. I'm like, fantastic. Well, that's a pretty good guy. He said, could you hire another job for me? Seeing as you have a grasp on social media people, which I didn't, could you hire this other job, which is a social media analyst? I said, I'd love to. I have absolutely no idea what social media analyst is. No, not did many people in 2008, to be fair.
Sure.
And he said, right. He said, great. He says, you're the first recruitment agency that's even bothered to ask what one is. Come and have a couple of beers with me, and I'm going to tell you about this new industry. And it really was a new industry at the time.
Did that blow your mind?
It really did. I sat down with this guy. He told me this new, and I guess you could see it happening at the time as consumers or as business professionals as well. You could see it happening at the time that all of a sudden people were using social media for business purposes, but it was very embryonic at that point, and they were one of the very first social media agencies. So the idea behind, they were using social media to help clients like Sky, BMW, Audi, MTV, all this kind of stuff understand how markets to their products and their services through the social media market. So I was straight from the very start, I was looking at one of the smartest professionals in the industry use social media for marketing, for social listening, for reputation management, and all that kind of stuff. And I was hiring for him, and I succeeded really quickly with those roles. He says, you've just got a knack for finding people in the sector, because I was able to find 2 of these social media analysts for him. So I found 3 actually. So he hired 2. And he said, whatever it is you're doing, Steve, he said, I don't know whether how successful you are or how tough it is for you, whatever. He says, do this, drop it all and do this, because this social media industry is going to go it's going to go up and up. And if you can get it.
Did you have the sense to make any investments?
I merely moved my car. I really turned my car into another direction, because I wasn't doing it. Like I say, I wasn't. I was only doing bits and pieces of work. It was a recession. I was working locally. It was nice work I was doing, but up until that point, I'd had no defined direction. I wasn't planning to. But all of a sudden, this gave me an incentive. This gave me the direction, and it was almost like the Cloud9 that I'd already built. Thanks for that. That's great. That's done a little job for me. But here we are, kind of like a year on, or 8 or 15 months or so on, and now I'm thinking, right, this is what Cloud9 is going to become. So I literally rebranded Cloud9 from that moment, created it almost as a new brand. I spent a lot of time. Now, how did I spend time researching and understanding this? Because as you say, I guess getting the 2 or 3 placements quite quickly with him gave me a little bit of leeway because he said, right, if you're going to go into this marketplace and do social media. Now, social recruiting was not a thing that we'd ever heard of at that particular point, as we know it now. But he said, right, he says, go to this market. They're going to love you. It's going to be great. But one thing he said I advise you to do is not act like a recruiter in this market. And I thought that was a real fascinating kind of insight from Christian. But he was like, because he said the industry hates recruiters. So you need to act as nothing like a recruiter as you possibly can. And he and another guy taught me, one for him over beers, and another guy I went on a social strategy course, taught me how to impact through social media, how to make use social media as the cornerstone of the way you do the same thing as I did back in 2004 or whenever it was when I was sat in the office in Crawley, and you want to make impact quickly, you wanted many people to see you and respect you as quickly as possible. It was the same module, but this time using social media, and they taught me how to do it. And actually, I spent a lot of time, not just taking on what I learned through a training course, but also watching other people. And gravitating around those people. In fact, what I did very, very quickly with the new Cloud9, the real Cloud9, was to start watching the most influential people in the industry that I wanted to recruit in. And I started watching what they do and what they say and what they write about and who they talk to and who do they talk to and then who do they talk to and who seems to, and find out where the scene was and find out where the hub of the marketplace was. And what I wanted to make sure I did was be there. That's what I wanted to do, is to be there.
And a lot of this, and eventually this turned into you becoming a thought leader in this space within agency recruitment and in recruitment in general.
Yeah.
What were those early days like when you were starting to sell this service to other people? And how did you manage your existing business at that time?
Well, it was very easy to drop the other early business because I was literally, it was, bits and pieces, all sorts of stuff. So literally I made a full shift into this new market and all that kind of stuff. So what you're sort of then doing is, so effectively what I did is I networked first. I never sold. I mean, you've just used the first phrase sell. I've always kind of communicated that I think we live in an age where we don't need to sell so much anymore. We just need to be authoritative in our marketplace and visible. So the method that I always explain to people is, if you imagine your recruitment marketplace to be a circle, a room or whatever, what we typically do in recruitment land is we sit on the side like the gnome in a pond, fishing for bits and pieces, almost as if we're not worthy, but just give us a few bites here and there. We're quite subservient, I think, to the industry quite a lot as recruitment agencies. What I decided to do was to go straight in the middle of the pond, straight in the middle of the room, and kind of go, right, where is it all happening? And I'm going to be there. And the recruiter part of who I am is merely my badge as to what I do in that industry. That's my role in this industry. But I am as a crucial part of this industry, and I'm as important a person in this industry as anybody is. And what that does then, so once you start fishing around the most prominent names in the industry, the people who talk the most, go to the same events as they do, sit on the same webinar, sit on the same Twitter chats. In those days used to be quite a thing. They still are a little bit now. But I used to join the Twitter chats and join in, not just with a recruiter head on, but also with an industry contributor head on. It's if they're talking about the latest trend in technology within the industry, I want to be there. I want to be in that conversation, and I want to ask some questions, and I want to be visible. And then what will start to happen then is people start to recognize you as one of those people in the industry. And then they start to work out what it is you do in that industry. Oh, you're a recruiter. And as people used to say to me, you're a bit nice for a recruiter. You're too nice to be a recruiter.
Is that the Sussex thing in you?
Yeah, well, maybe it is.
Everybody's nice down here, aren't they?
He's a nice guy. But yeah, so that was good. And so what you do is you earn respect before selling a service. I was, whilst also naturally just picking up bits and pieces of work all the time. I mean, you're still doing proactive stuff. You're still doing things that kind of ask direct questions, because you're still doing the research in the marketplace to find out who's recruiting, etc. But the way that we did it through social was very, very different. It's kind of, it was not a case of picking up the phone and selling to them, because actually the clients would tell us which direction to go. They don't want that kind of stuff. What we needed to do, well, I still need to, but I used social really intelligently. And what you did then, particularly in those days, but I think it's still the case now, is you kind of surprise people when you turn up on Twitter or something like that, dropping them a line to kind of say, hey, look, I noticed you're recruiting a bunch of roles. Have you seen what I specialize in? And you do it on the platform that they're specializing in any case. It surprises them, so they're not expecting it. They expect a phone call. They elbow out phone calls and all that kind of stuff. So surprising them in a channel that at least expecting it was beneficial as well. But yeah, so all of this so what I was doing then was what nobody was calling social recruiting at the time, probably apart from Bill Borman and maybe Matt Older and one or two of those sort of early recruitment digital thought leader types that you referred to. And then all of a sudden I turn up in their domain and say, oh, this is interesting. I'm doing this already, and I'm making money from it, and I'm billing and all that kind of stuff. And they were like, "Well, come and tell the story, please." And so I did, and that's what I started to do. Is you start to become a bit more visible. But as important,
no sales calls in 10 years, isn't that the tagline?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I haven't made a sales call. Keep going. Yeah, exactly. It's years and years because you didn't need to. In fact, actually, we demit. And so the irony is, what I was doing was a thing called we've been known as social recruiting. I think now, particularly with some of the work that I do now, we call it talent demand generation. It's a very marketing terminology for what I was doing. And it's you build demand, you build authority, you build visibility, you build that kind of gravitas that says that's the guy you've just got to go to, right? And
sure.
So
let's jump into the specifics of what this means for, say, somebody sitting in a seat and they're maybe thinking of setting up a recruitment agency.
Yeah.
They're kind of in a little niche already, because most people are these days, right?
That's right. Yes.
What's the first few things they should do from a social perspective? How does that journey look like? If you were to give them like milestones to achieve within certain sections of time, what does that journey look like?
Yeah. So I think the first starting point is don't go back to the old days of thinking I must get a job on really quickly and go for the client win type thing, because I think that's where we miss a trick, because we haven't got a talent, we haven't got a product yet, and you can't deliver at any speed unless you're going down a retained campaign kind of recruitment kind of basis, of course. However, but the first thing always is to identify the market. So the market your niche is in, and then to start to identify who are the players in the marketplace, who are the people, who are the senior people, who are the noisiest people, who are the most influential people in the marketplace, and identify who they are in the space of you. So you can do that through things like Twitter searches for certain particular phrases that are very unique to the industry. Do that on LinkedIn, definitely. Now you could be doing it on Facebook as well, to identify who talks about the stuff that people want to hear about in the industry. So you have to do that kind of stuff. And then what people say to me a lot about the social media thing is like, but then how do I build a following? How do people kind of care about what it is I've got to say? Well, the big part at the start is don't say anything to start with. The first few days of all of this kind of stuff are the first couple of weeks of this are just listening and watching what other people do, and then start to infiltrate. So once you have an idea of what other people are saying and who they say it to and how they do it and all that kind of stuff,
what they're saying as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you can start to form your own contribution to that, and it's quite deferential. It's quite kind of start with. It's kind of like it is that learning kind of thing. So you're listening and then contributing. But what you're doing, social media is built around sharing and generosity. It's not a sales tool, right? Wasn't ever built for that. Social media was built for commonality, for mutual interest, for mutual professional interest as well as personal interest. That's what it's built for. So how do you play in that kind of environment? And what you do is you share your identity, you communicate, you're generous with other people, you say, that's brilliant. You share something and say, have a look at this guy or this lady did, blah, blah. And you build your point in your marketplace. You're building. So it's kind of like that thing when you go to a party where you don't really know everybody. You only know, maybe one or two people, and they introduce you to a few people. And what you very rarely do in human situations like that is start to take over the room. You don't start elbowing people out of the way and then telling everybody your own opinion. You listen to what they've got to say. You assess the lie of the land first, and then you start to bit by bit drip your contribution into it. But you make friends, and it's very simplistic in way of putting it. Is you make friends sort of in the process. You start to build alliances, and you start to build. So, and that is a piece by piece by piece process. And that comes from then going social media identification to where does that go next? Typically in recruiters, we think, oh, I've got an identification with this guy. They recognize who I am. They're talking to me. Right. I'm now going to sell to them. No, you know, not in the social, not through the social media route. You've got other ways you'll use sales process, but with something like this, it's kind of like, now, how do you take an online relationship, a connection to the next level? You take it offline, and the whole objective of social media is to build audience and build visibility and build connection, but the objective is to take it offline as quick as possible. Now, whether that's over a phone call, whether it's over a Google Hangout chat, you know, a Skype call, or whether it's over a coffee. And that's what I used to do. That's what the journey was: identify online, find them offline, and find because the actual realization or the actualization of online engagement is built offline. It's developed offline, and that's where your relation and what you're doing here. So take it back to the reason why my first business failed a lot is because we went to market, sold, found clients, hired jobs for clients, brilliant, and we were so proud that we'd found 4 or 5 amazing companies locally. But there was no sustainability. There was no relationship. The relationship between my agency then and the clients was: client needs job to fill, we go fill job, or try to fill job, or etc. etc. Whereas the grounding of social recruiting, or the grounding of this kind of basis of how we develop our market presence, is built around more than a job to candidate fulfillment relationship. It's built around identity, mutual identity. It's built around kind of almost like a friendship kind of thing, and that thing where they choose you, when a client chooses you or a candidate chooses you, they're the ones who invested in the journey. If you sell to a company, there's no investment from the client's part.
And let me jump in. So you've developed relationships with thought leaders, and
significant people in thought.
Significant people.
Yeah.
And that, I suppose, once you've built a following through sharing probably a lot of their material and maybe commenting on their material, you probably get to a point where you need to start to be thinking maybe a little bit creative. So you need to be either documenting what you're doing and making that your content, or viewing what they're putting out there and putting your own spin on it.
This is absolutely the next stage. You're absolutely right, from a point of view where your own contribution. So you go from listening to commenting, contributing, so add to what they do, and then you start to consider, all right, now I know what people want to talk about, what they care about. I'm going to write my bit of content, or I'm going to share some bit of content. However we choose to do that now.
And I think we have all the tools available to do it for free, whether that's a podcast like this, or it's a video, or it's a short bit of advice on Instagram. Or
we're so lucky. Yeah, we are. We're so lucky now. When I started doing the Cloud9, really you could blog, and that was pretty much it. Really, there was no real easy video access tools and all that kind of. Now you can be Facebook living, you can be LinkedIn living, you can be Instagram living, you can be, and that's what's kind of cool about the now, is the fact that you can take an instant thought and just go, and you can defer, and you can refer to something you've read. So you can, there's a, and you can literally be walking into work and you just read a blog on the train or something or other, and you can literally just kind of now do a thing of like, well, I was just reading a blog by such and such a leading person in industry, give them a mention, tag them on LinkedIn, all that kind of stuff, to say, right, this is really fascinating. What do you think about this? I'm conflicted because I can see that this would be a really great thing over here, but what about this thing here? What about this thing that he's saying that says da da da? Do you see what I mean? And so so thought leadership doesn't come from initial thought generation. Thought leadership comes from getting involved and creating the thoughts of other, and igniting discussion and igniting. And that's one of the things we try to do as much as we possibly could. But people weren't expecting us to do it because we're a recruitment company and they expect us to do one thing. And here we are sitting in the marketplace, creating discussion. We would do blogs, but we'd also do a lot of events. So again, the sort of things you can do online now that was not so easy back then, is we would invite, but we'd say, right, hottest subjects. Okay, let's book the pub down the road, book it for an evening. Um, maybe get a company to shell in a little, pay for a couple £100 worth of beers or something or other, and let's get three really cool people from the industry sat on a panel and let's talk this thing out. And we did that, and we marketed it through social. Say, look, that thing you're talking about, right? We've got this guy, this lady, this guy talking about that subject because they're authority in it. Come along, it's free. Come along and join us. And we would get between 60 and 120 people pop down to the local pub, where we were in London, obviously, so it made that a little bit more accessible, to come and talk that subject. And that's us creating the discussion area that they could get involved in. So we're a platform for commonality.
And then we need to kind of think, how do we distribute this content? And I think, if there's anything that I've seen in compared to yourself, my short career, it is that it's harder and harder every quarter to generate likes, views, and shares on content without paying for it to be distributed. And I don't pay for any distribution, but I see that I'm going to have to in the future, because the stuff that I do now is way better than the stuff I did 2 years ago. And my analytics on it aren't as good as one picture of a foreign destination 2 years ago, because everybody else is doing it, and the platforms are obviously, like, LinkedIn's been sold to Microsoft, and I feel like things are getting geared towards us having to pay for the distribution and then to social proof it through that. Is that something you're seeing?
I definitely see there's examples of that really happening now. My fear with the whole paid route is the same fear as every other previous route we've done before, and I think very quickly we'll end up in saturation zone. A next layer of that saturation zone. I think any kind of paid or any kind of advertised kind of route is very good these days. I mean, we get, the intelligence now is really good, and the targeting is excellent now, and I think that's great. And I think that's there. We'll reach saturation point. I think one of the things we have to, one of the things that's developed, if we sort of look at how social media and the purpose behind what we use social media and the digital platforms and all that kind of stuff, I think the way it has evolved has moved away from worrying about volume and focusing on quality engagement. And actually, look, people were saying this actually most of the 10 years ago as well, but it was very difficult to turn that into reality, because
it was harder to target, first off.
Yeah, harder to measure.
Harder to measure.
Target, yeah. And actually, so what you're doing is you the feeling was, I'll go as far back, close back as 5-6 years ago. We'd still write, and we'd aim for numbers. We'd aim for volume of likes, views, etc. Because you had no metrics to tell you the success of that piece of content in any case. So what you would do is you work off the principle that says, if I get 1,000 views, or I get 2,000 views, that's going to be okay, because you kind of think, well, that means that a certain percentage of it will probably then look at my website and etc. And
let me jump into that.
Okay, yeah, go on. Yeah.
Okay, so I think for anybody that's listening, that's looking to do this, it's not all about just creating attention. It's about getting an ROI on that attention, and that happens through a funnel. Yes. So walk us through what, that 10,000 views on LinkedIn, whether it's an article or all the rest, where should that should be brought off the platform, right? At some stage, or if it's on Facebook, it should be like, how should we be thinking about those funnels, and how can we do that in order to maybe get more clients or candidates?
Candidates. Well, and in most cases for people these days, it's candidates. It's the battle for candidates. We live in an age now where that ROI analytics thing that we didn't have 5-6 years ago is now there. I'm associated with Candidate ID, which is a great example of one of those sort of pieces of software that can tell you the success of any piece of content you get.
Blatant plug.
But what is that?
A blatant plug there.
Oh, sorry, it's great. But it's more about the fact that this has changed the dynamic. Forget the platform, forget the product. I think this is where we've got to now, which is very, very cool. Is the fact that we should be one, because we've always wanted to get people off social media and onto our own platform. So the direction we're sending people is always go and have a look at our website, right? Social media, every time we spend too long on social media now, asking people to spend time on social media, you're sitting in a competitive environment. So you're competing for attention constantly with social media. In fact, we're always competing for attention now because we all exist like the flight of the bumblebee. We go and we grab bits and pieces of content from place to place, etc., etc. But so the direction you've got to do now is, particularly in that noisy space you were talking about, the fact that actually everything's so noisy now, it's difficult to get noticed. It's difficult to get that eye line. So the trick has to be get them from social media onto your platform, because when they're on your website, there's no competition there, right? Other than life, the things that pass us by and stop us from looking at our phone and laptop or whatever. But then you're in a zone. You're in a zoned environment. You're in a place it's your property, right? So the objective is always to get people there. Now, what we live in a world of now is, yeah, you're right. If you've got 10,000 people in a funnel, very few of those people need a job right now, right? I mean, less than 10% of people really need a job right now. Less than 5% people, I think it's actually 3 to 4% of people, are likely to need a job that you have right now. So from that big 10,000 thing, you've got to identify. And so let's call this pipeline, right? Because that's what we should be calling this. Go back to what I mentioned earlier, that was kind of like the failure of an old business, and a lot of older businesses is never dealing with the pipeline, only dealing with the stuff at the bottom of the funnel. So the stuff at the bottom of the funnel is great. They're the ones that are going through to your website and they're reading your stuff, and they're the ones who are active and looking for a job right now. And they're going to tell us that more often than not, because they're actively seeking. And then there's the bit just above that. If you take the traditional awareness education consideration and purchase kind of funnel, the people in consideration are people we want to know about. So they're good. These are the people we want to influence and talk to. But then it's the other bits. It's those education awareness bit. Typically what we do is we ignore those people. We have no idea what they do, what they care about, etc. But that doesn't mean we ignore them. It doesn't mean but typically we would. Typically we would say, right, who cares about those people, because they don't need a job right now. But sustainability and pipeline and ongoing thing means that we're now in a living age where you need to identify who those people are as well. We need to identify the people who look at a blog, click on our website, but don't do anything else, because they're not looking for a job now. But knowing that we've just drawn their attention to our website kind of makes us then go, right, what do we got to do next with those people? Well, clearly, if all they're looking at is like your blog or your industry commentary, that kind of stuff, but they didn't look at job pages on your website, well, that's telling you that they're probably not looking for a job right now, or they haven't quite pressed that trigger yet. So next piece of content to those people, let's start targeting it, but let's not send jobs.
Yeah, is that where your cookies could let you maybe retarget them towards something different?
Totally, yeah. So what you want to do is build a nurture journey. So all of these people now, and if in a typical funnel like you refer to, some people drop straight down to the bottom. Brilliant candidates for jobs we've got now, candidates we can do something productively with, blah blah blah. But of course, the bottom end of the funnel is a very small segment. It's a small portion of it. Yeah, the other stuff, you're working out, how do I guide them down the funnel? And how do I build a relationship with them that is, so it goes back to that kind of networking thing. I talk about the fact that often I spend time in rooms with people in the industry, talking to people that are absolutely nothing to do with anything I was hiring for. They were probably never going to be clients, but they knew people who were. And so it's about how you use the zone of influence and the zone of connectivity and visibility and all that kind of stuff. So there are people. So what you've got to be doing through that nurturing funnel is kind of build goodwill and build rapport with these people through content, through relevancy, through commonality, through things like them. So by keep feeding them either through cookie retargeting, IP retargeting, etc., or just through, if we've identified who those people are, because with certain products like Candidate ID now, you can identify by name the people who are fishing around the content. But what you can do with those people now is you can target content back to them that is relevant to where their interests kind of lie, either through email marketing and that kind of stuff as well. So all of a sudden, we're building a relationship with people that didn't actually just require us to stand in a networking room with them anymore, like I had to do 10 years ago, because it was kind of the only way I could build that kind of greater rapport. But what we need to do is keep feeding them content that's relevant over the course of time, stay in their eye line, stay visible. And the objective you're looking for in every one of those situations is, and I go back to a thing I said earlier about our greatest USP as recruitment agencies is first access to talent when they're looking for a new role, because that's the thing that's unique. If they chose us, if they chose you to make your search, to manage your search for them and manage their search for a new role for them, then you're quizzing, you're on the mark, you're on the page. You've got something, that candidate, that nobody else has got, and that means that is unique, and you can go to market with that individual candidate. But you don't know that if you're just blasting jobs out into job space. You don't get that kind of degree of privilege. You just get the people who apply and the people who didn't, and the people who are no good. And whereas with content, you build rapport, and social media communications and things, you build rapport, you build visibility, you build demand. And that goes back to that thing about demand generation. You build demand, you grow demand, and then let people fall through the funnel almost onto your lap. And that makes it sound very simplistic. Of course, it takes a little bit of work, but actually, it's far more effective than shoving things on job boards, or doing things that are one-to-many kind of communications. What you're aiming for is a quality that drops through the funnel at the bottom, and it starts identifying with your job content and with your careers content and all that kind of stuff. And they're, in a sense, from a money-making exercise, they're the only ones that matter. They're the only ones that really matter, are the ones that drop to the funnel, from a point of view of where your recruiters spend all their time. But with things like, a lot of that content stuff now we can automate. We don't have to, and this is where the new age of social recruiting and digital engagement is that we can do a lot more automation now. We don't have to do the all that hard work that I used to do 10 years ago, fishing around all the networks and all that kind of stuff to identify the hot subjects. I can automate a lot of that journey should I choose to do that now.
How would you automate that journey?
Use automated tools, of course.
Can you give a shout out to one of them? Or?
Well, you can do a number of things. So you could go, if you wanted to do sourcing, automated sourcing, you could use something like a Pocket Recruiter to start identifying people who exist in your network who and make and make first engagement, automated engagement with those kind of people, to kind of based on their attributes, based on what it is you're searching. So you can do specific sourcing things automatically now, rather than having to read through a million LinkedIn profiles just to find a few people who want to bite. So Pocket Recruiter is a good tool. There's a product as well for LinkedIn engagement. I'm trying to think of the name. He'll kill me that I can't remember. It's brand new. A guy called Ivan Stojanovic, who's known as the Irish Recruiter, even though it's Croatian.
I think it's come across.
But he's
Irish.
He's brought out products on LinkedIn engagement. It's brilliant. Tracks LinkedIn engagement as well, so you can when you make first inquiries, you can track the journeys of what happens next. That's really cool. Then we start. I think when you've got a pipeline of candidates and you've got a pool of candidates, you want to, because those first two things aren't content marketing. Pocket Recruiter and Ivan's tool are engagement automation, sourcing engagement automation. But then if you want to build the journey through the funnel, that's where Candidate ID comes in as a tool for managing the content funnel, managing the journey that people take, so you can identify. So you're automating a series of content. So you've got to do a bit of content work up front. So you've got to build some planned content, and then once you've built the planned content, you can then grade where that content is for each person through a funnel, and then send them the right content at the right time, and automate when they change gear into being slightly more of an active candidate from a cold candidate. You can change the content, you can change the messaging to them, and where something like Candidate ID is super cool is you can also identify by name the people who read each bit of content. So from a targeting point of view, you can start, and that's when the point is when you see that people are doing the really cool stuff with your content by name, that tells you recruiters who it is that you should be talking to.
I'm nowhere near being across all of this at the moment, but
Well, this is new. This is new level stuff. This is the age where we're at, where all that stuff that I was talking about that absolutely can still work now. It's it's more legwork, but hey, it was fine. You know what I mean? It's good to do the legwork. It's good to do all the human engagement and people engagement kind of stuff at max level, because those all conversations are good conversations. But obviously, we're now in an age where you can take that volume. The volume of digital, and we've all got on our CRMs and LinkedIn databases and all that kind of stuff. We've got hundreds, thousands of candidates and client prospects, etc. And we cannot call them all every day. You know what I mean? We can't do something with them every week, and we can't do something with all them every month. In fact, we don't. They're usually dead. We've all got dead data on our CRMs and things. But you can bring it all to life now to kind of go, right, how can content and social engagement and the things that we do digitally impact the efficiency of how a recruiter operates? And that's the world we're in now, where we have the opportunity to do that kind of stuff if we want to change the way. So when we think about a startup, so I really if I may, I'll just allude to a very quick conversation that I had earlier this year when I'm talking about technology with a guy who's just started a recruitment company 6 months earlier, and he came to me about obviously that piece of software, and I kind of said, well, look, you're on your own. You're a one-man band in Cambridge, I think he was, and I said, this is a piece of software. It's not a cheap piece of software, but why do you want to choose software of this nature to take your recruitment business forward? And he said, look, I make a decision. He says here, I'm a starter. He says the 3 routes I can go with regard to who I hire next. He says I can hire another recruiter like me, because this is a guy that starts his own recruitment company, knows his sector pretty well, good at doing content. He writes a lot of content to keep himself visible in the marketplace. But he's growing because his business was coming in as a consequence of it, a bit like I did at Cloud9. It just comes in naturally as a consequence. So he said, right, either what I do is I hire another recruiter like me to do what I do, or I hire a marketer or he says I hire a robot. And he looks at it and said, recruiters are quite painful to manage. And he says, at this stage, I've chosen, I don't really want to manage another recruiter at the moment. I don't have enough business that I would need to share the jobs out and all that kind of stuff. I just need to make my time more efficient. So he says, I could give away some of my marketing and do it to a marketing person. But he says, I enjoy doing my marketing. I enjoy writing my content. So I don't want to give it to a marketing. So he says, the logical thing to do is to use a piece of software. So because the cost of the software is the same as the cost of employing another person. So he says, I would rather have a piece of software that can automate the content I do, tell me who's responding to it, so I can track the journey, look at the people, and it minimizes my time. He says, I'll never have to advertise jobs. I'll never have to go broad sourcing. I can just use the stuff that I do already, and I can identify the people who are really reading it and really care, and the people who then look at my jobs.
And is that Pocket Recruiter or?
No, that's Candidate ID.
That's Candidate
so talk to me about Candidate ID. Yeah. But you see, that's the world we've sort of got to, and this is where the evolution of social recruiting has kind of come now, away from being a sort of a window dressing kind of exercise, a kind of a vanity exercise, which it quite often would be, a thing you sort of feel like you need to do to be visible in the marketplace. Now into a kind of like, great, keep the visibility, absolutely, but one of the things we were never lucky enough to be able to measure was genuine lead generation, and in the days when I had Cloud9, and now we can use content, social, digital engagement as a lead generator, as a demand generator, rather than purely as a vanity window dressing kind of aesthetics kind of exercise. And that's where we're at now, and that's kind of cool.
That's exciting, isn't it?
It really is, because oh God, I mean, how many conversations have I had with recruitment agencies over the years, particularly when I've been, standing on stage or running talks or webinars or whatever on social recruiting. And actually then they'll say, well, what's the ROI? And I'm like, well, all I can tell you in ROI is how many placements I've made through social recruiting over the course of the last dozen years or so, whatever. And that's all I can tell you. But but the ROI never came from the content or the social media. The ROI came from the optimization of what you did. It's the taking advantage of the things you do. So the ROI came in the effectiveness of the recruiter. Now we can measure ROI in the effectiveness of content, social media journeys, and the journeys we take. So we can actually go as far as to draw a thick line between a single piece of content and a placement, and because we can track the people who did it. that's where we're at now. And all of a sudden that means we can start writing things with a feeling as though we're going to get something from it, rather than bloody hell, I've got to write a piece of content and I don't even know it's going to go anywhere. I don't even know if anyone's going to read it. I don't even, et cetera. And that's where we're at now.
That's amazing. Cool. So working backwards, soon you'll be able to kind of work out what that content should say before, so you're not just creating something, you're going, well, this is exactly what the piece that'll hit that person that I'm after in 1 month or in 3 months or in 6 months, depending on where they're at in their journey. And here's how I do it. That's a game changer, really, isn't it?
It is.
That's a whole different thing. So last thing, really, we're an hour into this. Would you believe that? Is where can people find you now? Are you doing any events in the coming months in the UK?
Yeah, I am. I mean, as well as just people finding me on LinkedIn and the places and on the social channels where I'm always at. I'm doing. I will no doubt be doing True London when True London comes back in September. I think Bill Boorman's, which is a great event for folk who want to come along and talk about stuff themselves as well, like have conversations. Because often the big events, you've got to sit in a chair and watch somebody on a stage talk. So that's one way. So True London will happen in September. I don't know the exact date, but that's a good one. So I'll be doing a track, no doubt, at that. The Rec Expo is coming. Love it or loathe it. It's the one in Birmingham is in October, the start of October. I'm doing a talk on social recruiting from lip service to lead generation. So I'm doing a talk on that, and I'll be there for that. So that's a good place to catch up with me as well. There's definitely things on the agenda. Another one probably to look at for folk as well, who might quite enjoy a casual one. I think it's on September the 5th, I think, is the social talent meetup. So Johnny Campbell and his crew do a social talent meetup in London. This one is talking about the future recruitment agency. It's got Kevin Green on the... although I don't think I'm going to be on the panel, I'll definitely be there. That's for sure, because I think it's going to be great. That's going to be a great subject and a great discussion. So lots of places you can find me. I'm always out and about. I'm always accessible.
Okay. Great stuff. Thanks so much for coming on.
My pleasure. Welcome.
I've learned quite a bit. I think I'm halfway through the kind of the social bit of thinking of things ticked off the list, but now you've just blown it out of the park. So I'm gonna have to go back to the drawing board. But that's why we're doing this, to learn.
I know, right? Well, it keeps moving, Walter. That's why it doesn't stand still very long. So it's you've got to keep real agile with this kind of stuff. I'm afraid it's hard.
Look me up the next time you're in West Sussex. I'm down here in Arundel.
Oh, absolutely, down the road. Beautiful. Yeah, very nice. Right. Very nice.
Deadly. Thanks so much.
Great stuff, Carter. Enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Well, a massive thank you to Steve for coming in and giving me all that information. Some takeaways I got from that is there's probably a few tools that I should be implementing along the way. Like right now I create content. I don't really know if it's the right content. So the thought that there's something out there that could say, this is the content that you need to do to appeal to this person who's at this stage, and here's another tool that's going to track them through the journey and maybe make sure that content hits them out there. And there was a lot of stuff there that I'm going to have to research. He's obviously well ahead of most of us when it comes to this area. I'm going to have to dissect this, actually. I'm going to have to get it printed out, maybe make a few blogs out of it. And hopefully I can implement some of these ideas in my own business. I hope it's of value to you as well. And, if you're going to any of these events that he's at, I'd say go up, shake his hand. He's the type of person who has a lot of time for everybody. And okay, that's it for this week. We will see you next week. We have another exciting guest. All right, take care. God bless.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.